Hello and welcome to Beauty Will Save the World. Today we'll be reading from these selected poems of EDNA St. Vincent Millay. Um, EDNA St. Vincent Millay was an earlier 20th century American poet, and fun fact: she got her name St. Vincent because she was born in an hospital which was called St. Vincent. And I feel like she has been, you know, a bit forgotten. She's not as popular in the, you know, today's reader's conscience like she was in the first half of the 20th century when she became quite popular. Uh, she started off, she was like sort of a prodigy, started off writing poetry at a very early age. She also played the piano, and she wrote this poem called Renaissance in a competition. I think is the first poem in this selected works, and somebody in the audience, a Renaissance, somebody in the audience who had her and recognized her talent, offered a scholarship at Vassar College, which I think was a college for young women. I think she wouldn't have afforded it without the scholarship because she lived with her family in relative poverty, and you know, uh, but the poetry gave her a chance to to be somebody. And in her poetry, you can't really tell, maybe apart from the particular poem called Ballad of the Harp Weaver, where she seems to write a poem that was inspired by her early life, the poverty of her early life. But she sits between, the the death of the old romantic style to the new sort of contemporary poetry. So her poetry are a bit formal in the technical style, but in subject they're very modern. She was way ahead of her time, and she defied societal boundaries. She didn't write as a female poet, but she wrote as a poet. And you can see this sort of how brave she was in her poetry, how she redefined, what it meant to be a female poet at that time and to be an artist and to live that sort of life. And so I think we're going to read a few pieces by her, some of the shorter, famous ones. One of my favorites is Prayer for Persephone. Prayer for Persephone. So, this could be Orpheus talking. So when she takes a position as the poet, and Orpheus seems to be like the patron saint of poets. So probably a prayer to Persephone after Eurydice is lost to the underground, to the underworld, and is not able to get her back. So prayer to Persephone. Be to her, Persephone, all the things that might not be. Take her head upon your knee, she that was so proud and wild, flippant, arrogant, and free. She that had no need of me is a little lonely child lost in hell, Persephone. Take her head upon your knee, say to her, my dear, it's not so dreadful here. Uh, Another one, a shorter one. is a very famous poem called Fast Fig. My candle burns at both ends. It will not last the night. But ah, my foes and oh, my friends, it gives a lovely light. Um, and we find another. Witch wife. She's neither pink nor pale, and she never will be all mine. She learnt her hands in a fairy tale, and her mouth on a valentine. She has more hair than she needs. In the sun 'tis a woo to me, and her voice is a string of colored beads, or steps leading into the sea. She loves me all that she can, and her ways to my ways resign. But she was not made for any man, and she never will be all mine. So I think I'll read the last one, which is the Ballad of the Hap Weaver that I mentioned. It's very appropriate for now because it's just gotten into winter here in Scotland. It's freezing cold. So the Ballad of the Hap Weaver is a winter poem, and she and her sister and her mother spent some really dreary winters when they were very poor. Ballad of the Hap Weaver. Son, said my mother, when I was knee high, you have need of clothes to cover you, and not a rag have I. There's nothing in the house to make a boy's breeches, nor shears to cut a cloth with, nor thread to take stitches. There's nothing in the house but a loaf end of rye, and a harp with a woman's head nobody will buy. And she began to cry. That was in the early fall. When came late fall, son, she said, the sight of you makes your mother blood crawl. Little skinny shoulder blades sticking through your clothes, and where you'll get a jacket from, God only knows. It's lucky for me, lad, your dad's in the ground, and can't see the way I let his son go around. And she made a queer sound. That was in the late fall. When the winter came, I'd not a pair of breeches, not a shirt to my name. I couldn't go to school or outdoors to play, and all the other little boys passed our way. Son, said my mother, come climb into my lap, and I'll chafe your little bones while you take a nap. And oh, but we were silly for half an hour or more, me with my long legs dragging on the floor. A rock, rocking to a mother's goose rhyme. Oh, but we were happy for half an hour's time. But there was I, a great boy, and what would folks say to hear my mother singing to me to sleep all day in such a daft way? Men say the winter was bad that year, fuel was scarce, and food was dear. A wind with a wolf's head howled about our door, and we burnt up the chairs and sat upon the floor. All that was left us was a chair we couldn't break, and the harp with a woman's head nobody would take, for a song or a pity's sake. The night before Christmas I cried with the cold. I cried myself to sleep like a 2-year old. And in the deep night I felt my mother rise and stare down upon me with love in her eyes. I saw my mother sitting on the one good chair, a light falling on her from I couldn't tell where, looking 19 and not a day older, and the harp with a woman's head leaned against her shoulder. Her thin fingers, moving in the thin tall strings, were weaving wonderful things. Many bright threads from where I couldn't see were running through the harp strings rapidly, and gold threads whistling through my mother's hands. I saw the web grow and the pattern expand. She wove a child's jacket, and when it was done, she laid it on the floor and wove another one. She wove a red cloak, so regal to see, She made it for a king's son. I said, not for me, but I knew it was for me. She wove a pair of breeches quicker than that. She wove a pair of boots and a little cocked hat. She wove a pair of mittens. She wove a little blouse. She wove all night in the still cold house. She sang as she worked, and the harp string spoke. Her voice never faltered, and the thread never broke. And when I awoke, there sat my mother, with harp against her shoulder, looking 19 and not a day older. A smile about her lips and a light about her head, and her hands in the harp strings frozen dead. And piled beside her and toppling to the skies were the clothes of a king's son, just my size. Thank you for coming by, and take your time to check out EDNA ST VINCENT MILLAY. So we shouldn't let such a wonderful poet uh, get lost to obscurity. So, well, thank you for coming by, and like and subscribe. Beauty will save the world.